everybody. We were gonna run today, but then the GM had a bright idea and he brought Shadowrun. And everything was going well until I tried to roll an attack, and then I had to confirm 4 different dice just to make sure I could get the attack through. And then by the 4th attack, I'm gonna be real, I was just done with it, and I just kind of packed up and went home. The session's canceled.
And the GM said something about sniffing them grippers, and everyone got a little uncomfortable too, so that didn't help. And
Ooh, I hate you. I hate you so much.
I had to bring
hate
it
you
back.
so much.
I had to bring it back up. And nobody heard that conversation prior to recording, so it's just going to be a mystery about sniffing them grippers.
I don't know why you had to do this to me.
I don't know, because it's fun and it does a lot of damage.
Yes. I literally, it did just enough psychic damage that I didn't break into laughing. I just shuddered. I just was like, fuck, no.
Also, I like that you will never let the Shadowrun thing die.
Because, okay, I was going to say either one of 2 things. I was going to do the Shadowrun thing, or I was going to say the GM brought the Warhammer 10th edition to get ready for 11th, and you have to roll 3 separate dice to confirm damage on any fucking attack roll, and it drives me nuts. I've played I've played like 5 or 6 matches of 10th edition Warhammer, and nothing makes me more mad than when I roll a fuck ton of attacks, and like 3/4 that they like, right? I'll roll like 15 attacks and like 9 or 10 of them will hit, and then I have to roll to confirm, and not a single one actually confirms damage. And I'm there like chewing through my fucking codex.
Yeah, that's kind of sort of what my complaint with Shadowrun was, or not Shadowrun, with it's not exactly the same, but that's kind of sort of what I was getting at with Daggerheart, about the like gate to the damage often can make the damage feel unsatisfying,
Yes.
Again, not really a great example because it's not the same problem, but that was kind of my thing with Daggerheart, about that feeling.
Right, well, so even when we were talking about Daggerheart, I didn't disagree with you on that, and I was like, oh yeah, that reminds me of Warhammer. That shit sucks. But
did you bring up Warhammer? You might have. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, either way, yeah, it was. Yeah. The other joke I thought about, the other potential joke there is you're playing Pathfinder and you have to confirm your 36 different instances of flat-footed.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because that game loves flat-footed.
The crit rules for Pathfinder 1E are so dog shit. I hate that it's like, oh, cool. I rolled the ability to crit, and now I have to roll and beat this again to crit.
Why?
And like, yes, I know that there are things people do to like damn near guarantee crits 3/4 of the time, but that's a lot of shit I don't want to have to do today.
Right, but like they didn't have to design they didn't have to design in such a fashion where the characters can confirm a crits 3/4 of the time. You know what I mean? Like they designed a problem, like they caused the problem and then fixed the problem, which is like, what, maybe just don't make the problem.
Yeah, just don't make the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, Pathfinder does weird shit. I mean, they took it out of 2nd edition as far as I'm aware, so, It
reminds me of a certain roleplay system. You could say it's a Ogent.
You can't bully Cogent. That game's not even like an actual game. It's like a fucking alpha.
It is an alpha that never got released.
It's an alpha concept. It's not even like a thing.
Look,
did you hold on? All right, we can't do this. We can't do this for too long. We're getting a little too inside baseball. But did you watch the video? Did you watch the video of him talking about?
I did watch the Crispy Tavern.
Did you notice that at the end of the video he said exactly what I said?
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
He was like, "This feels like a game for someone that feels like a game made by someone that only played D&D and that they were reinventing the wheel because they've only played one game." And I was like, yeah, okay. Glad I'm not the only one who picked up on that.
No, a lot of people say the same thing.
I'm glad I'm not the only, and I've read other games that give me a similar feeling for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That DC-20 game was giving me a little bit of that vibe, although I didn't look that thoroughly into that. So that was just initial vibes. I may be off base with that one. I don't know.
Oh, that's what were you talking about? That's
another YouTuber's game. I can't remember.
Yes, I'm trying to remember what it was called.
It's literally called DC-20.
The game is called DC-20?
The game is called DC-20, yeah.
What was the one that it was like, who was the one that made the game? It had like a kobold on the front and it like was supposed to be kind of piratey themed and then it was just more 5e.
Are you talking about Tales of the Valiant?
Yes.
That's a very different situation. Tales of the Valiant's made by Kobold Press.
Right, you're right.
Which is a very well-established design studio, and they weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. They created Tales of the Valiant. Well, originally, it wasn't actually a pirate thing. People just thought it was going to be a pirate thing because they called it Project Black Flag before it had its official name.
Right.
People just assumed
fucking Project Black Flag.
It was never.
To be fair, that's a very fair assumption.
Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah, but it was never originally intended to be that. That was just the working name. It was called Project Black Flag because they were pirating because they were like resisting the man by making their own D&D with blackjack and hookers, right? Because the reason that Tales of the Valiant being what the game became, right? The reason that Tales of the Valiant got made is because that was when the OGL hit. Kobold Press was like, oh no, we're fucked. We need our own game. So they made Tales of the Valiant. But, and they called it Project Black Flag because it was like, yar har, fuck the man type energy.
Look, in the same vein, if you named your working title Project Bushido and people are like, oh, samurai, and then it's like actually medieval fantasy, and you're like,
yeah.
Wait, what the fuck?
Yes, it was a little bit of a weird choice, and a lot of people preferred the name Black Flag, which, fair.
I almost feel like they owe it to people to make a pirate game.
A pirate game, yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be a whole game. Just make a pirate expansion for Tales of the Valiant.
I think the license they put it under, or the system they call Black Flag role playing. So they kind of sort of kept the name.
Okay.
But yes, the game proper is Tales of the Valiant. But that game wasn't trying to be not D&D. That game was trying to be, we're making our own version of D&D, but we still want it to feel mostly 5e-esque. And in that regard, I think mission accomplished. I think there is a lot of good, fun ideas in Tales of the Valiant. And Tales of the Valiant is definitely the kind of game where if you have players who you really want to convince them to play something other than 5e, but it's going to be a tall order, you can give them Tales of the Valiant because it's just different enough that they're going to be like, ooh, new toy, but it's similar enough that they're not going to feel like, they have to reread the Bible to learn a whole new thing or whatever. So it's one of those games. Now, is that what I personally wanted? Fuck no. But do I get why they did it? I mean, yeah. So, no, DC-20 specifically, the YouTuber, by the way, is the Dungeon Coach is his name. I popped open the PDF to find it because I couldn't remember. No, DC-20 was around the same time, and it was meant to be, I guess his core objective was to make like a more modernized 5e that doesn't have the baggage of old D&D to worry about, which is kind of what Draw Steel does, right? Like Draw Steel is a very similar idea. We want to make a modern kind of heroic fantasy game, but without the baggage that D&D as a company and as a brand has to deal with. I think DC-20 was kind of a similar idea. They were like, I want to make a D&D thing, but like I want it to be unshackled by its past. But again, I don't know how successful that was with DC-20 in particular. I looked at it very early on with some playtest preview shit, and that was kind of it. But there were definitely some fun ideas in there, like a mechanic for wizard battles. I remember that being an interesting premise.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, like basically the idea was you would declare, like if someone rather than having like a counter spell in the game, it's like if somebody casts a spell and you're a spellcasting character, you could declare how you counter the spell with your own spell, and it had this like wizard duel thing going on. So like if the enemy was casting fireball, you'd be like, I'm gonna wizard duel him, and I'm gonna cast, mold earth to create a rock wall to block the fireball or something like that. I don't know how successful the mechanic was, in play or anything like that, but it was an interesting concept for sure. But yeah. So yes, okay. Long story short, yes, Cogent Roleplay had that weird energy of, I'm gonna, reinvent the entire universe, and then all the stuff they tried to do, it's like, well, somebody else has already done this.
I think the funny thing about Cogent is that it didn't.
And then it didn't go anywhere, it didn't finish, so.
Well, it didn't finish, but also, didn't actually do much.
It didn't, no, yeah. I think it was, I think it was, I think the intention was for it to eventually do more, and it just never got to that place. And I'm sure some of that is probably affected by, the two brothers arguing.
Maybe.
Arguing being a nice word.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Again, though, we're getting very inside baseball here, so let's...
No, we are. And to go off of our usual intro, I can't say that I got a bone to pick.
All right, wait.
That's not true.
I got a bone to pick with you for forgetting something.
What?
To tell everyone to read the Bible and go to tie their shoe. Wait, no, not that. To follow and subscribe on their podcast platform.
I would literally never tell someone to read the
Bible. I mean, it might be an interesting read. Just as like a, read it like a novel, basically.
I would just, I can't see myself ever being like, you know what, you should read the Bible.
I don't know. Listen,
here's the thing. I hate organized religion by default, so this is a hard sell.
I know, but you could, but some people just read it as like a what's the word? Like a moral framework kind of book, almost like some people read the Bible kind of like a self-help book, and in that context, I think it's fine. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. We're not going to talk about the Bible. However,
I'm just saying. However, we are going to say you should follow or subscribe.
Which is the Lancer Core rulebook.
Damn, he's just ignoring me. That's crazy.
Oh yes. Follow us on the Who's It and the What's It.
The Who's It and the What's It. Yeah. Nailed it.
Yeah. I got a bone to pick, kind of, with my game right now. So, where do I even start? All right. Now that I am back into the swing of things truly with Lancer, right? We're running weekly. I'm sort of getting back into the swing of running, that sort of headspace you have to be in. We're running combats again. We're doing the downtime stuff and all that fun shit. I am starting to realize that I am either fast approaching or currently within the early stages of the point where the game's combat mechanics are beginning to buckle under their own weight. And preface,
buckle? Straight up buckle?
Not fully buckle. It's beginning.
Okay.
Its knees are wobbling. It's like we're right at 3/4 of its like max out rep, and I don't know if I gotta be there to hit it with that fucking spot. You know what I'm saying?
The game's on 0 RIRs.
Yeah.
You don't know what that means.
I don't either.
No, I said you don't know what that means.
Oh no, I have no idea.
RIR is reps in reserve.
Oh,
it means
no.
Like if you do an exercise and you say you have 2 RIR, it means like you did 10 reps, but you could have done 12, but you chose not to do 12 on purpose.
Gotcha.
It's
on 0 RIRs. Yeah.
It's dude, bro. Lifting science.
Gotcha. To give a little bit more of an explanation, I'm currently running a series of back-to-back combat encounters in the form of a mech fighting tournament. I've talked about it a couple times on podcast. We all know what it is. The winner of which is going to get a huge cash prize. As a part of this, I am straying from the norm and using a standardized 3v3 encounter system that varies in its maps and environmental hazard rules, the latter of which are ripped straight from the core rulebook. This is important because this is not how standard combat in Lancer works.
Hold on, wait. What's the
Typically-
non-standard here?
3v3. I'm sort of prefacing by saying I know this is not how combat works typically. Typically in Lancer, you have
Okay.
a force, an opposing force, with a total structure count equal to the players.
Uh-huh.
Which is to say, if there's 3 players,
You would have
There
3
should
enemies,
be-
no?
about 12 enemies. 12 tier 1, 1 structure enemies.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
So, structure 1, which is to say, like, when they lose their structure, they just... Oh, no, sorry. No, I got that mixed up. There should be... What was it? No, yeah. There should be as much structure as or enemies as the average structure. So that would be like 5 or 6 for 3. You have like 1 or 2 big guys and then like, 3 or 4 little guys.
Okay, so wait, so structure kind of being your CR style, like ranking of enemy strength thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you're saying the enemies should have a lower structure number than the players, so you can put more enemies on the board, as it were, against the players.
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm remembering it right now. There needs to be a total structure for the enemies equaling the amount of players there are. So if there's 5 players, there should be 5 structure worth of enemies on the field at any given time.
So not every enemy is a structure value of 1, is what you were saying here.
Early
They can
on,
be-
yes. Later on, no.
It goes down later?
It goes up later.
Goes up later.
Well, so no,
Okay.
it goes down insofar as you could have 1 like elite unit with structure 2 or 3, and then like 1 or 2 little goobers to keep them busy.
No. So it goes up. The structure values go up. That's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
yes. Sorry, the structure values go up. Right.
Right. Okay.
All of this to say is that I am running atypical combat, and I am aware that is introducing a little bit of weirdness into the system.
How is 3v3 atypical if you have 3 players and then 3 enemies?
Because the enemies have less structure. Elite enemies, when an enemy is an elite, which is to say they have the elite tag, the elite template, they are given 1 extra structure and 1 extra reactor count. So they effectively
Okay.
have 2 health bars as opposed to 1. The players, no matter what, have 4. And while the enemies can do a lot of damage, they can't typically output enough damage to drop a character 1 full structure per attack unless they've got some sort of thing that should let them do that.
So you're putting the players up against challenges slightly above their punching weight?
Slightly below,
Slightly below. How is it slightly below?
because the players have an easier time killing the enemies, and the enemies have than the enemies have killing them.
But
And
if you have 3 enemies of structure 2, that would mean the enemy structure count is 6 and the player side is only 3.
Player side is 4 per character. 12 total.
It's 4 per you didn't tell you. Okay, you didn't say that part.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
So
under cranking the fights a little bit.
I am under cranking the fights and then balancing it out by making the enemies stronger. So like when you give a character a template, typically that means you can give them 1, maybe 2 abilities from that template and 1, maybe 2 abilities from their base class. Because every NPC starts off with 1 or 2 base abilities and 4 or 5 extra ones in case you want to throw some variation in there. I'm just giving them flat 2 each. So they get 4 extra abilities, which is really important.
Okay.
The math gets a little weird. I'm not going to get into it that much, but know that 4 extra abilities per character is really good. And I am cranking their numbers. I'm giving them a little bit more health. I'm generally like bumping their stats 1 or 2 points across the board and doing some stuff all over. Again, all of this to just say the fights are atypical, and I was expecting a little jank. A little bit.
Okay.
The issue is that the jank that I was expecting versus the jank I am experiencing,
So
very different.
if we can do the compare it to 5e as we often do for the sake of making it make sense. You're taking the wizard enemies and giving them like twice the number of spells they normally have.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm giving them like, 2 or 3 spells and maybe 2 spell slots above what they should be able to have.
Right, which means they have quite a bit more potential things they can throw out, which means there's more potential things for you to keep track of.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, well, to preface, the jank that I was expecting, right, is, having a couple passives up at once that I have to juggle, and being aware that, the players have invisibility and some of them just can't be targeted by attacks. So, like, things that I've dealt with in the past, but I'm starting to see that the layers are overlapping more consistently and creating more buffer zones in between declaring attack and confirming damage than I would like, basically. And it's getting to the point where I am actually forgetting all of the steps that go into an attack, and I've like written them down before. And yeah, I guess I can do that every time, but like I'd have to write over a dozen different scenarios for fast tracking attack to damage. You know what I mean? It would be very difficult.
Wait, what's the difficulty specifically?
The difficulty is I was expecting a certain number of overlapping effects that I have to keep track of. I'm realizing that there are more, and they are affecting things in different ways than I was expecting. And I guess I could, like I said, in theory, write out some like fast track, graphs to go, okay, if X, then Y. But I'd have to make well over a dozen flowcharts for that to be viable, basically.
I see.
And I literally did write out a flowchart in these notes.
I see. Okay.
And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different steps. And several of them have sub-steps in them to confirm one attack.
Okay.
And it's going both ways, right? If it's annoying enough that I have to worry about, how my attacks are affecting the players, but I'm also now thinking about how players' attacks affect me. Because what these characters are right now, they are strong tier 2 units. The players are license level 6. They have the capability of jumping up to license level 9 because we're using the expansion rules where you use money to level up and not mission completion.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really good at solving side missions within missions. So they're getting extra pay, and that extra pay is building up. And it built up because I saw them level up from 3 to 6 in one mission and was like, okay, I have to hard cap that because they're going to hit level 12 before I know it. And I don't really know how to run tier 3 combat yet. So I had to cap them. And now that we're at Act 3.
You intentionally slowed them down a little bit?
I slowed them down to keep them at the right leveling because they could have hit tier 9 by level 5, which is not what it's supposed to be.
What sentence did you just say to me?
Not tier 9. They could hit license level 9 by mission 5 or 6.
Okay, that previous sentence was not... You said they could hit tier 9 by level 5. I was like, wait, what?
My bad. Yes,
Okay.
they can hit...
Okay.
They could have, in theory, hit license levels 8 or 9 by mission 6.
Level 8 or 9 by mission 6 when it's supposed to be a 1-to-1 kind of thing.
Yes,
roughly.
So I had to cap them at 3 levels per act. And that way, they can build their strength to whatever they think they need. But now I have the ability to build up to meet them, but it's capped. I don't have to, go super far overboard.
Okay. Some of this is certainly sounding self-imposed. Some of this struggle, I mean.
Well, so that's the crazy thing. The struggle, it is variant rules, but it is official rules, right? I'm not running some weird homebrew shit.
Uh-huh.
I wanted the game to feel more about risk and reward. My players are just generally good at going for the side quests and completing them. And I'm not even making them easy. They're just pretty good at doing it. So I'm not like I think the only real home rule that I've implemented across the board is I changed the way critical hits work in the game. Because rules is written, you just roll the die, like roll whatever your damage number is twice and take the higher one. But that fucks over about half of the weapons in the game that just do static damage. So rather than having it re-roll, I just said that critical damage can roll one extra d6. You might think that feels anemic. It really isn't.
There's not base rules for crits on flat damage weapons?
Nope.
That's odd.
I know. That's why I changed them. I looked it up, did everything. They were just like, no, static weapons just kind of get boned on this. And I was like, well, that feels shitty. So no.
It's very weird choice, but okay.
Yeah, so I just made it so that crits roll an additional d6. No matter what the weapon is.
Okay.
And it's strong, but it's not like, it's the only homebrew. And it's only accounting for a small chunk of the problem. Very, very small. And like I said before, it's compounded by some characters having abilities that effectively make them untargetable. Others have more health than every member in the party combined, and other ones have damn near 20 evasion, which is really hard to hit for NPCs, unless they're ultras, which is to say bosses. To note, save for the first issue, I can work around the others with little difficulty, talking about the ones I was just talking about. Not counting the other random overlapping bullshit. I'll talk about that in a second. Like Snubby's character just being able to go into another dimension. Like she basically gets a free plane shift from D&D every round, except she pops back at the start of her next turn.
Okay.
And that's annoying. It's very annoying.
I was gonna say, how do you ever hit her?
You basically have to have any NPC that wants to target her hold their action for her to pop back into reality and then just blow her the fuck up before she gets to do anything on her turn.
And this is a base game rule? She didn't do any shenaniganery?
Nope, this is a base game rule because she's running the Calendula, and the Calendula's base fucking ability is, hold on, I have to look it up because its name is absolutely ridiculous. Its base ability is called, where are you, you son of a bitch? Is it? Am I dumb? What the fuck is it? Wait. No. What the fuck? Where'd it go?
I don't know.
Oh, wait, no, it's part of the Manticore. Right. Its ability is called Execration of the Names of the Unworthy Dead.
It's a long name for teleporting.
Yes. She just gets to move into the firmament, which is another dimension, as part of the sub-ability Grammaton Mantle. And yeah, she's intangible, which means that she cannot be targeted by anything except by another creature that is also intangible. And that's very hard for an NPC to have generally. I think only 2 or 3 other NPC types in the game of like the standard. Well, I think without the expansions, I think only one other enemy can do intangible shit. But the other add-on packs that they've made, there are more, but still very, very little.
And is this a mech that she shouldn't have access to, but you were nice and let her have, or
no?
It's like a standard one she got it the default way.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The game basically says if there is more than one mech on one mech license. So, for example, the Minotaur when you hit license level 2, you can take the Minotaur frame or the Calendula frame, You get to pick one of those mech frames and you're stuck with it. You can't like go back to the Minotaur. You've picked the Calendula, you are stuck with the Calendula now.
Okay.
And the Calendula is part of the Carrick and Trade Baronies expansion, but it is still a base game thing. She doesn't have to do any extra work for it. Yeah, the only way to really hit her is to have something else intangible, very difficult to do, or to have a bunch of NPCs hold their turn for her to start her turn, and then blow her up at the start of her turn, and potentially kill her before she can even make a single move. The other option is to damage her friends and assume that she is going to lose intangibility, right? She's going to actively not choose that passive for the round to eat some damage for her friends.
The old flying in D&D, bro.
Yeah, she doesn't do that.
She just says, nah, y'all motherfuckers can die.
Unless they literally beg and are like, I'm gonna die, I need you to eat an attack for me. She'll be like, okay, I'll eat an attack. And then eat one and she only has 12 HP on a structure, which is not a lot. But like, she'll go down to like 1 HP in the structure and go, okay, goodbye, I'm leaving again. And she's gone.
Okay.
So that, like I said, that's one ability I have to work around. And the other ones are frustrating, but they're less bad, right? If a character has high evasion, target their E defense, just hack the shit out of them. If a character has a lot of health, target their heat buildup. They probably don't have a big reactor capacity. The problem now is that all of these problems are compounding together. And it's becoming really, really annoying. Because it's becoming a situation where I don't know what to do anymore. Because anything I do has a high likelihood of not doing much. Because 2 of my players also have invisibility. Or a means to replicate the invisibility effect. Making even NPC encounters with a high number a sort of waste of time. Because the way invisibility works is that it creates a hit confirmed condition. You have to see if you can hit by rolling 1d2 and rolling odds. On odds, you can make the attempt to hit. On evens, the hit is missed, the attack is wasted, and nothing else is done.
I see. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
A little much.
So that's 3 characters who have that, right? Snubby becomes intangible. Moon and Sify can become invisible or basically invisible. And Paladin has 31 HP per structure for 120 HP total. That's more health than every other character combined.
I see. It's just a walking sack of meat.
Yes. And then Brett has an ability that lets him build armor, which reduces damage that is incoming to a maximum of like +10. So, and he can't do that immediately. That takes a little bit of prep time. But when he has really, really high armor, and then he braces, which halves all incoming damage for the round, because it works like Guard and Fabula, except you can't brace somebody else. I would have to deal at least 20 damage a hit, which NPCs don't do, to actually hurt him. And I don't know what...
Is this really an issue of crunch, or is this an issue of power creep?
Like, both. Both, because it's a situation where I can hit them, I can hurt them, but it's getting to a point where I have to do weird shit and get lucky on the die or crank dice in my favor by giving characters just a bunch of advantage. So like I put some sniper NPCs up against them. Snipers do 15 damage a shot with their anti-materia rifle, and their snipers have 2 advantage, which is 2d6 take the higher, +4. That's really high. You're averaging about an extra, like a +8 to hit every round. And And that's cool and that's fine, but like, it's another die I have to add to the system. It's another bit of math that I have to do. And I guess it is both power creep and crunch, but like, it really does feel like it's both. If that is, it feels like both. Like,
it sounds like you're complaining more about the power creep, though.
I guess so.
Because, like,
I guess so. Yes, I guess the main problem. I guess to revise the thesis, the main problem is the power creep, and then the crunch I have to do to beat the power creep. Because I have to. So I used an NPC in this fight called a Warlock. Now the Warlock is a homebrew creature. And basically what it does is it creates a sphere of influence in which you have to roll to see if you're affected by it. If you're affected by it, what does it say? Players cannot alter or replace dice rolls. They cannot cause automatic misses or failures against themselves. They lose immunity to being critically hit. They cannot change targets from initial attacks. They cannot negate attacks, but they are still affected by invisibility. They also cannot use lock-on, perform critical hits, or gain the benefits of accuracy. So it's really it's like brutal at shutting people down.
Uh-huh.
But it tells you something that I was like, this encounter needs this crazy bullshit hex field ability to effectively stop them. And I'm gonna be honest, it did effectively stop them for 2 turns.
Okay.
And then I literally could not. I had a couple of really bad rounds where the snipers just couldn't hit anything because I am unfortunately fighting Brett, Mr. I have damn near. I am. What is it? I'm fucking invincible. Hashtag sundowner. Teleports behind you, nothing personnel kid with Siffy.
Yeah.
And then Cass, who's just invisible. So.
And Gennaro's thick.
Yeah, and I was like, in my head, I was like, they really have to work together. They really have to pull this shit off right. Or I think I might actually beat them in this fight. And I was just wrong. Because I didn't realize how tightly interwoven the team mechanics get now. And I was just sitting there being like, I don't know what to do. And they haven't beaten in the encounter yet. But it is a guaranteed win because they killed the Warlock. Like handedly killed it. And now it's now there are these 2 snipers and they can do 15 damage a round, but if the players brace, they're halving that 15 damage to a 7.
Does not the bracing burn their turn?
No, it's a reaction.
What?
It's a reaction, and what it does do is it means they can only use 1 quick action and they can't overcharge on their next turn, but they do still get a turn on the next turn. And as a quick action, they can...
It's not like a D&D dodge situation.
No, it's a reaction, and every mech can do it.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And
okay, that seems a little crazy.
It is, and my NPCs can do it as well, but and I did. I literally I had the Warlock brace, and it survived 1 extra round than it would have, 1 extra turn order, because the players got lucky and they ignored the hex field with good rolls. And it was like a DC 15, that's not easy to beat at LL6. It's doable, but they were rolling really good. So I was getting unlucky. It just felt bad, man.
Okay. I mean, I don't know necessarily what I can say in this particular situation. the problem is I don't know the system in question, so I can't give you any kind of system specific advice. I mean, if you said you're doing the combats slightly, somewhat non-standard. If you were doing them in a more standard fashion, would that change this very much? It doesn't really sound like it, but
not really. Like, it would be a little bit different, right? There are more enemies on the field. There are more ways that I can affect the players. There are more attacks I can throw at the players. But there, unfortunately, are not enough ways to counteract invisible once it's used. There's no way to stop the intangibility thing unless I just stop the player from taking turns. Or again, I melt her through reactions. But that also eats my NPC's reactions. So they can't use their custom reactions or brace to eat damage. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. I mean...
And I have overwhelmed Brett with damage. But it's gotta be like back to back heavy hits. And then with Paladin, it's just attrition.
It's just like,
I just have to throw as much shit at him as physically possible.
Like, LOL, he's thick.
Yeah, and like for Brett, I can circumvent his armor by giving things armor piercing or make them do burn. But as Brett can attest, because I've had a couple encounters where that happens, it feels bad when his character's one thing keeps being circumvented.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I am Armor McArmorman. Well, all of these things are just going to ignore your armor now. Or they'll give you a status effect that just turns your armor off. Like, I can't keep preying on my players' weaknesses every combat. You know what I mean? I can't throw hackers at them every combat.
But is that what the game expects you to do? Like,
no, this is the crazy thing. The game tells you what a typical enemy team should look like. A typical enemy encounter should be comprised of 3 or 4 mech types. 50% of those mech types should be strikers. So you should have 2 strikers and either 1 defender, controller, or support.
Can we translate these terms here? I mean,
so
defender.
You need it's literally like it's 14 light party. You need 2 DPS.
Can you translate this for the normies, Isaiah?
You need 2 DPS, 1 tank, 1 support.
Okay.
Or 2 DPS, 1 controller, 1 tank. And like, supports can be healers, but not every support can be hackers, but they aren't always. It's a pretty even split between support hackers and support healers and buffers. Same thing with controllers. There are some controller hackers and there are some controller buffers. And then there are ones that like...
Okay, I don't know that nullified my question here though. I like, so to compare here, I'm trying to I was trying to think if we could use D&D as the like broad touch point, but I don't think D&D really tells you to build encounters in this fashion, so probably not gonna work. But like for Fabula, right? The player characters get access to some pretty equally wild shit to a certain degree, right? Like, you know, in our current game, free every turn damage, incredibly consistent, really strong healing, the ability to just like ignore status effects quite a few times, the ability to turn off enemy shit, right? These are all things you guys can do in the Fabula game. Fabula specifically says when talking about encounter design, I mean, the book probably doesn't explain that. Well, actually, the bestiary explains this better. The bestiary says like, you have to design you want to design every encounter in response to your group, right? The book has that whole bit about the creatures in the bestiary were designed to work with the average party, but most groups are not going to fall under the average parameters. So the point is that you're supposed to take these and then make adjustments and essentially design combats for your party specifically. And that can mean designing combats that you know your party will kind of shit on, like having your party fight a bunch of ice golems, even though you know they have reliable fire damage, and the reason you do that is to let them do the cool thing where they just get to flex their ability, right? But also on the other side, if you want the fight to be hard, design it for your party in such a fashion that you know it's going to maybe not completely shut down, but at the very least respond to what your party's abilities are. So the easy example in Fabula is you have a group of players who all use melee attacks reliably, throw a bunch of flying enemies at them to force them to have to try and change up their plan or figure something out, right? And Fabula says you're supposed to do that, right? Sometimes you design a fight that you intentionally let them smack around, and sometimes you design a fight that intentionally is going to be, you know, quite an uphill battle for them. It doesn't tell you to design fights they intentionally lose, obviously, and I would say that's, you know, you don't want to do that in general. So is Lancer saying, like, it gives you the sort of role types that you should have in the team, on the enemy team, but is it saying that you should design the enemies specifically in response to player loadouts? Like, is that part of the intended design?
I have not seen anywhere in the core rulebook where it says that, but I don't not do that, right? Like,
okay,
I create fights that I think will interact interestingly with the players, right? So with this like sniper fight, I know players have a bunch of ways of manipulating dice. So I built NPCs that can turn off their ability to manipulate dice. And in that vein, I did just sort of get unlucky because they rolled well enough to avoid that ability, right? Like, I'm getting that. I'm not saying that's not the case. What I am saying is that if I can't actively shut down what their characters can do every round in every fight, then there isn't a lot I can do, and I wouldn't want to build encounters like that, right? Like, I build encounters to what I think is fun and what I think my players will enjoy, or they'll have to, like, use their brains to solve. But ultimately, it's starting to feel like nothing I do matters because they can just subvert it. And I was thinking, like, in my head, as I was building the sniper encounter, I was like, maybe I should make these guys tier 3. And I stand by, I didn't. I made them, like, high tier 2. I should have made them mid tier 3s and just not made them ultras, but I'm not 100% sure how much that would have solved. Like, yeah, the Warlock would have lived a little bit longer and it would have had an extra structure, but, like, or not even, no, sorry, it wouldn't have had extra structure. It would have had, like, extra hit points and would have done extra damage, but I don't know that it would have done enough to make a meaningful difference.
Well, I can't really get into the nitty gritty on the math and the mechanics and shit with this situation. I haven't played this game, so, like, that particular element, I don't know. But it sounds like what you're saying is the players have been pretty consistently shitting all over everything you've thrown at them. Have you tried to design a fight that will, like, kind of intentionally dunk on them?
I have, yeah. You know? So before they did the big, like, walking fortress thing, I made them fight enemies that have something called the Ushapti gun, which is basically, it's the thing the Pegasus has that just, like, it just hits you. Like, there's nothing you can do. It just hits you for free, no roll required.
I don't know what Pegasus has to do with anything, but okay.
It's a mech called the Pegasus.
I don't know any of the mechs in this game, my guy.
I'll just read to you what it says.
I mean, it doesn't matter. No, don't read it. We're getting into the weeds. It doesn't matter. So it's a thing that shuts down the players. That's all. We don't. The specifics don't matter.
Yes, it deals damage to them no matter what for free, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's armor piercing.
Okay.
It ignores cover, bypasses immunity. Its damage can't be reduced or ignored in any way. And it specifically says no rule in the book or any other can supersede this.
Okay.
So I threw that at them, and then threw hackers at them, and I upped the Ushabti's damage because typically it's 1 AP, and I made it 4 AP. And there was 2 of those. So while that damage isn't a lot, it is consistent, and because their abilities aren't working, they're not turning them on, right? They're not wasting the action economy to either go invisible, even though, I mean, for 2 of them, it's passives, but like, you know what I mean? They're going, okay, I'm not even going to worry about this because if they can just ignore it, then there's no point, right? And that was funny, and it was fun, and it was like challenging for the players. They were really sweating. But I can't give every enemy the fucking Ushabti gun.
No, but the question, the solution is not to give every enemy the super special fuck you gun, right? When you're dealing with, this is the thing about tabletop games, you don't want the win rate. You don't want tabletop games to be perfectly balanced, right? The win rate should not be 50-50 because then that would mean you'd be killing the players 50% of the time, TPKing them 50% of the time, right? That's not right. Players should be winning like, you know, handily 80% of the time or whatever, 70% of the time. The objective is just to have stuff in your pocket for when it narratively makes sense that they should be sweating, making them sweat, and when it makes sense that they might not, then you don't need to worry about it as much. So you just have to kind of balance when you throw out the stuff that specifically shuts them down and when you don't, right? Again, just trying to go with using my game for comparison because it's, you know, we're both playing it. You know, I actually, here, we'll use a very recent comparison, right? You guys are fighting the Lich, Seth, and I saw that the Lich, you know, I saw he had a fireball, right, as one of his spells, and I knew for a fact that Senna was weak to fire, right? I knew that. And I left that in there on purpose because I wanted y'all to sweat when fighting him. And as soon as I did the fireball, immediately everyone went, oh, fuck. Right? So,
yeah.
If it narratively makes sense where you want to have that oh, fuck moment, or another example is, you know, this didn't happen, but like, if I want to have an enemy where it specifically is like, oh, okay, let's say I want to shut down your character in particular, Isaiah, like I'm going to shut down Goromaru for this fight, so somebody else has to try and pick up the slack, right? I'm probably going to have the enemy, you know, probably they're going to be flying for starters. They're probably going to have some sort of ability to like, you know, counter basic attacks, or maybe they're going to have something that specifically has a clause about sword type weapons. You know, I might have a situation where you can't use your protect for some reason, right? You can't jump into the way to defend somebody else. If I'm specifically like, this fight's going to shut Goromaru down. And then the fight after that, I'm like, all right, this fight is specifically going to be a problem for Senna, but Goromaru and Dawn, if they are paying attention, will just absolutely stomp on this guy. Right? So you want to kind of balance that idea of designing an encounter in such a fashion that who do you want to bully and who do you not want to bully, or do you want to bully nobody, or do you want to kind of bully a little bit of everybody, and just playing with that. And it sounds like the problem is that Lancer has quite the complicated math, so sometimes it's going to be quite hard to make your bullying mathematically correct. Right, because you have this weird... It's tricky because when you have a game that has quite complicated math, and if the math is somewhat obfuscated from you, it can be hard to design something where, oh, I want to make one player sweat and not the other, or it can be hard to just design a challenge in general for everybody. But that's kind of the mindset you want to have, is not every fight can be a super hard challenge. It's like when the 5e GM makes every single encounter a deadly encounter, right? That gets annoying quick because there's no variation. It's just everything is bringing us to the very limit, to the very edge. So you just want to avoid the monotony. So if the problem you're running into is that your players are steamrolling too many things, that's where you gotta figure out what tools you have to kind of steamroll them back a little bit, or at the very least,
therein lies the issue.
Operate in the middle. Well, like that's what I'm saying. I don't know the mechanics of the game, so I can't get into specifically what that looks like. But whatever you gotta do, like even if you have to kind of over crank things, then maybe that's just what you got to do, over crank things, you know?
Maybe. I mean, and so I'm not necessarily opposed to over cranking things. Like, seeing how this fight went, I was already going to crank the final round of the tournament, because that's what they're going into. Probably not next session, but the session afterward. So I'm going to say fuck it and go balls to the wall and throw a bunch of shit at them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to feel too bad about it. But... And like, yes, we're at the point where they're going to start facing tier 3 enemies at the norm. So
right.
I am also running into a situation where there is not much higher I can crank things. I'm running up to a limit. They are not.
Why are you running up to a limit?
Because there is no tier 4 enemies. Like, the game says, generally speaking,
the game goes to tier 4 but doesn't have tier 4 enemies?
Pretty much. Like, you can argue that the math should actually work out as 1 tier is 4 levels, but it doesn't actually really work out that way because the mech licenses come in sets of 3. Right? There's 3 license levels per mech.
Uh-huh.
So you get to a situation where 1 mech gives a player, let's just see, the most basic one. Let's go with the fucking Blackbeard. For 3 license levels, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. So the players have, generally speaking, double the options of an NPC.
Uh-huh.
So the math doesn't really work out on a 3-to-3 basis. Not to mention that even at tier 3, unless I'm making every enemy either an elite or a veteran, they're still only going to have 2 structure. Unless I specifically go in and custom build every enemy to have more structure outright.
I'm still confused. You're saying, again, if we're to D&D translate it, the players can get to level 20, but the enemies are stopping at CR 15?
Kinda, yeah.
Is there an expectation that you're supposed to custom build everything after that point?
Not that I have seen. I haven't seen a whole lot of talk, even on the Lancer subreddit, about campaigns hitting level 12. A lot of people say 6 is like a good number.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I want to run it to 12 to see what it looks like. And I'm seeing what it looks like. And I'm less than enthused.
Are you sure you're not missing something? Because I almost don't believe you. Like,
I don't know what is there not to believe, brother. Like,
I'm just having a hard time believing that the game is like, yeah, players can get to level 20, but enemies stop at level 15. Like that just
Well,
doesn't.
so that's where the templates come in, right? Templates like can power up the NPCs.
Okay.
But the game says that even like they shouldn't have more than 2 templates, typically. Even bosses shouldn't have more than 2 templates, right? They have ultra and then they'll get one other template.
Okay.
Like, you know, the templates are like spec op or contract killer or, you know, like a walking armory, shit like that's a talent. But you know what I mean? Like it just sort of informs how they play.
Does it make them directly stronger though?
Some of them do. Some of them do flat out make them stronger. So elite gives them an extra round in combat.
Okay, so I mean, again, stop getting into the specifics. The specifics aren't really that relevant here.
Well, the specifics are important. It makes them stronger because some of them can give them extra turns on the initiative.
I know, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about specific. We're not getting into the noodly of the mechanics of the game itself because we can't, because I don't know the mechanics.
Right. Well, so that is kind of. There's not much else I can say. I have to explain these things, and the only way to do it is through context.
What I'm trying to say here is, okay, so you have this template system. Is the intended use that the templates are supposed to bump an enemy from a tier 4 into from a tier 3 into a tier 4 level thing?
No, it's supposed to bump any tier up to like approaching the next tier.
Right, which would be 4.
But
if you're saying
not,
the game effectively goes to tier 4, then should not the next tier after that third one be the template bumps them into 4? Is that not the intention?
You would think, but it doesn't seem to be working. Or it either it doesn't seem to be working, or I'm just doing it wrong. Which, like, sure, I'm sure I could probably be doing it wrong. Like, I'm not saying that Lancer is poorly designed. I think it actually is very well designed, but I think it's running into a similar issue that high level 5e is, where the players just get such a large bevy of abilities and shit that they can pull off at any given time that it's hard to keep track or keep up.
I can't say whether you're doing it wrong or enough. I don't know. I don't have enough information here, but it just doesn't. There's got to be something that lets you push enemies into that final echelon, because otherwise if there isn't, then the game just kind of stops being a game and you're just kind of fucking around the last tier, the last echelon of play. And that just seems weird and out of place to me. Like I just have a hard time picturing that. Like in 5e, yes, it is true that the PCs get a crazy amount of shit, and the crazy amount of shit the PCs get can sometimes just shut your day down. But there are a couple of dials that you can just over crank in 5e to help compensate to a point. Like the easiest dial in 5e is to just go stupid silly with the damage, right? Like fucking Tiamat, her breath weapon does just, you know, unreasonable amounts of damage. Like, I don't even remember exactly. Hold on, let's see if I might be able to pull it up. If it'll load. Yeah. Okay, so Chromatic Flames is a 300-foot cone, so you're just gonna hit fucking everybody. DC 27, which is like, I mean, it's doable at max level, but it's hard. And it's 11d12, right? It's just like an assload of damage, which, granted, you know, PCs could have potentially like 200 HP at max level, but 11d12 is still nothing to sneeze at. So, you know, that's like saving throws and big damage numbers are 2 dials that you could just kind of overcrank the shit out of in 5e, and it doesn't fix the problem, right? High level play is still fucky wucky, but it certainly can help you a lot to overcrank those particular dials. And there's a couple other ones. So like there's got to be something in Lancer that you can just go stupid with to sort of make up for the problem to a certain degree. I find it hard to believe that there's like nothing You know what I mean?
Oh, so I didn't say that there's nothing, right? Again, so like the templates give you extra abilities. You can assign the extra abilities to the NPCs, give them more options, give them more things to do, and some of them are very strong. But following the game's rules on not overloading the NPCs with a bunch of abilities, which the game advises you to not do, unless the game says to just throw that idea out the window by tier 3.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Seem like
I'm thinking perhaps after tier 3, the intention is to throw that out the window. If the player characters are supposed to go to a tier 4 worth of power, a tier 4 power level, but the enemies don't go to a tier 4 power level, then it seems like your only option left is to throw out that recommendation of, you know, limit the abilities of the enemy. It seems like that's just like that doesn't apply anymore. You know, because otherwise you're just doing nothing. Like, you're just kind of wasting time otherwise, because you're throwing stuff at the players that you know for an absolute fact they're just gonna kick the dog shit out of, and on their side of the table, it'll be fun for them to kick the dog shit out of shit for, like, you know, a couple of fights, but they are gonna get bored eventually. So at some point you're gonna have to overcrank it no matter what.
I suppose so. I just don't like. It's becoming a situation where the players have not absolute defenses, right? But I'm still running into the issue of like, yes, I know that I'm not supposed to challenge them with every single fight, but that's never really been my intention. My intention, well, so no, my intention has been to challenge them every single fight, right? But like, challenge insofar as make them think about the fight. Because
I don't think that's achievable.
But that's what the game wants you to do, right? Like, that's why the game has sit reps. The game is forcing you to think about things in a non-linear way. And it's less frustrating, right? Like when the players have to actively think about using the sit reps to, like, oh, you know, a character, you know, Snuffy's character can't go intangible because she has to hack something. Like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But then that, again, it creates situations where some sit reps don't feel worth running because contending with the player's stuff isn't super satisfying for me. And because the game is trying to de-incentivize just doing all-out combat, and I know that in like doing this tournament arc, I am dealing with all-out combat.
I was gonna say, you are doing all-out combat in this situation.
It is sort of stress testing the combat in of itself, and it's making me realize that I don't even know. Like, I don't want to say that the combat's not as well designed as I thought it would be, because it is. Like,
I mean, that might be true to a point.
It might be like, no, the combat is really well designed, and it feels for the most part pretty smooth. So maybe it's just the fact that, like, my players just got lucky and built some weirdly overpowered shit by accident. Right, because it's not like any of them are looking up build videos. I know they aren't.
I was gonna say, I don't think you have the kind of players that did that. I mean, I suppose they could have happened upon a few particularly good combos. It sounds like maybe the issue is, well, A, like I said, you just need to overcrank things a little bit more. But also B, yeah, maybe the game is just anti straight up slap fight combat. Like, maybe the game just is of the opinion that you just should not do that, and because you're trying to do that so directly, it's starting to struggle too much.
Potentially, it feels like these problems that I have are going to be Like those problems are presenting themselves in a distilled manner because it is all out combat. But I'm still going to have these problems moving forward. They are still going to keep getting stronger. I am still going to have to keep over-tuning my NPCs more and more, well, to keep up with their abilities to just stop me from doing things.
If their objective is something other than just defeat guys in front of us, that mitigates the need to overtune to a certain point, right? If they have to split their attention to other objectives, they can't just use all their best stuff to pub stomp the enemy. So it will help that, but I think you have to figure out what the intention of that tier 4 of play is supposed to look like in terms of NPC power level, because it just doesn't. Like, I'm not saying you a liar, but I feel like you gotta be missing something. It just doesn't make sense to me that the game just absolutely leaves you high and dry 100% in the last 25% of the game and just has nothing. And I know that we're like, oh, well, 5e does that, but 5e doesn't leave you completely high and dry. Like, it still provides you with like NPC, there are still stat blocks for those higher levels of play. There are enemies that you could throw at level 20 characters. It doesn't leave you completely high and dry. It's not the most balanced shit in the world, but it gives you something.
No,
I
you're
feel
right.
like the game's got to give you something.
I think what it gives you are the templates, and but again, like I keep saying, not every character can be a veteran. Not every character can be an elite. Not every character can be an ultra.
Why not?
Because the game specifically says not to do that.
Is there no other template options that do something like that? I don't.
In terms of straight up power scaling, that's pretty much it. You get well, that's not an official one. You get Grunt, Elite, Veteran, and Ultra. Grunts turn characters into minions. They get 1 or 2 HP, and when they die, they just explode, right? Like, they're grunts. I guess I could turn everything into a Veteran, because that one doesn't actually give them more turns on the turn order. But they get so much shit.
There has to be a dial somewhere that could be increased. It just doesn't make any sense to me otherwise.
You'd think. I can't find it, though. I can't figure out what it's supposed to be, other than maintain a super tight balance between the sit rep kind of encounter, really specific builds, and tightly interweaving NPC synergies together. And I'm already doing that last thing.
I mean, the tightly weaving the NPCs is not the intention to do that all the time.
Yeah, it is. What I mean, yes, the idea is that you want your NPCs to have synergy, but what I'm talking about is completely optimizing their synergy. I'm already doing that quite a bit. But it is still really hard, again, to circumvent the absolute abilities that are invisibility, intangibility. They just don't really have a good turn off button.
I mean,
like I said, I can deal with high health. I can deal with high defense. I can deal with high armor. But there really isn't a lot of ways to deal with more than half the characters being, practically speaking, untouchable combat. And only one of those characters is untouchable and, can't touch anything else. Invisible characters can still do that. Again, unless I just never hit them with melee attacks and only hack them. That's the only thing that negates their invisibility. But that's boring. I don't want to run legions of hackers. The game's got like 50 different NPCs I can play with. You know?
Well, no, but perhaps you need to always have at least 1 or 2 hackers present.
For every encounter, like, you got to think about this. It's expecting 3 or 4 2 to 3 encounters per mission. That's just not fun.
I really don't know what else you want me to say. Like, I don't know enough about this
problem.
Game
like,
I can't. I don't know.
This could be super easy if I just make it so the players can't have fun, which I don't want to do.
I feel like there has to be some sort of element you either don't know about or are misunderstanding, because I'm having a hard time believing that this game gets to the final 25% or whatever and then just completely falls to pieces and just does not function, you know? Like, there's a difference between functioning poorly and this shit just don't work at all. And it kind of sounds like you're saying it don't work at all.
It doesn't feel like it. And even if my math is wrong, right? And each tier is every 4 levels as opposed to every 3. I don't know that makes much of a difference.
I don't know. I can't speak on the math. This is the thing. You keep bringing up the math. I can't speak on the math. I don't know.
Right, well, but you're saying I might be missing something. I'm trying to explain to you is that I've done the math both ways.
Well, when I say you might be missing something, I mean quite literally. There might be an element of the book you like didn't read, misread, haven't read in a while, forgot about. Like, I mean, quite literally, you may be lacking information.
I mean, I haven't in-depth read the Lancer combat rules in a while, but to the point of you saying it doesn't make sense that they would leave you without a tier 4. And what I'm saying is that even if there is no tier 4 and it's still tier 3,
yeah,
that doesn't seem to affect things much.
No, but that might not be the core of the problem. Right? Like, maybe the core of the problem is some different element of NPC design that you're just not thinking about or don't remember, or, you know, or just generally missed. If, for example, we'll just not calling out any particular game, just whipping up a hypothetical. Let's say there's a game that caps out at level 10, but the game gives you rules for the players and how their power level, like how their power increases past level 10. You know, they get extra damage and extra health. And then the game says to you, once enemies hit level 10, if you wish to continue playing, you have to do this, that, and the other thing to these level 10 enemies to continue to make them to keep up. So the problem might not necessarily be just the tier. Maybe the game intends for you to change the math on damage output, or change the math on health, or change the group design in terms of which types of enemies and all that are supposed to be on the board. Like, there might be some other element there. It's not just necessarily tiers and levels.
So I checked, and as a quick clarification, it is tier 1 is license level 0 to 4, tier 2 is 5 to 8, tier 3 is 9 to 12.
Yeah.
And they're fighting tier 2s right now.
Yeah.
And they're curb stomping.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not even at tier 3 yet.
Yeah.
And
so so then presumably going up to tier 3 will bring a shift up, is the hope. Like, you know, change things up a bit.
Maybe.
I mean, you're complaining that you're saying the enemy doesn't have the sufficient power, but you haven't hit that next stage yet. So presumably hitting that next stage is going to cause some changes to happen.
I don't know how much it will. Just with the experience I've had right now, I don't know how much it will.
I mean, have you looked at any of the tier 3 like abilities and stat blocks in terms of what they have?
Yeah. Tier 3 typically just gives an across-the-board bump in stats, and abilities will either increase damage or they'll increase save, and there's like 1 or 2 abilities that I know off the top of my head where it goes from a save to an absolute.
Sounds like relevant changes. Like, not nothing, right?
No, it's not about the not nothing. I'm not sure how else to put it. Like,
I'm not sure what answer you're fishing for.
I'm not fishing for an answer. This is kind of the problem. I don't know what the answer can be. I'm not asking you for an answer. I'm kind of asking the universe for an answer, and I'm not really getting one.
I mean, you're playing a game that is intended to be highly tactical, quite crunchy, quite specific combat, where the intention is that you have to build your party in such a way that they can all synergize with each other and really dunk on the enemy or whatever, right? And then I think the intention is that you as the GM are supposed to counter synergize.
And that's what I'm doing. I am counter synergizing.
But are you countering their shit specifically? That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
Not explicitly, but again, that's not fun.
But I think I think the game wants you to.
I don't know how it could want me to if the idea of just being like that in the character who goes invisible, every encounter, you just negate the fact that they can be invisible by hacking the shit out of them. Like, just from like a very fundamental TTRPG perspective, that isn't fun.
I mean, maybe not literally every single combat, but as soon as you want a combat to be any degree of a challenge, then you have to take that into account. Right, like, sure, they're fighting the random Gamuka guys. They don't have a hacker, so the invisible person dunks on them. But as soon as you get to the boss encounter of the mission, then yeah, they gotta have a hacker. Like, that's
yeah,
just...
sure. The boss encounter, that's fine, but I'm already doing that. Like, for bosses, I am giving, like I even said, like, I threw the thing at them that negated their abilities. I'm doing that, but it seems like what you're suggesting is to do that more often. But my counter is, then that's not fun. It's not fun for me, because then I have to limit myself to what NPCs I can run, but I don't get to play, you know, I have all this box full of toys that I can't play with, and it's not fun for them because I'm just illegitimizing their kit.
Well, again, you don't do it all the time, right? You give them the ones that you know they're going to dunk on, and you give them the ones that you know they're not going to dunk on. You know, you give them the ones that you know are going to be challenged, and you give them the one, like, you got to give both ends of the spectrum as much as you can. And I think this particular tournament arc idea maybe was just kind of a bad idea for this system. You know, like, maybe it just didn't want to, it's just not going to work that way because you're trying to do kind of a weird thing that the system doesn't want to do.
Maybe. Like, maybe. Because, like, even sit reps with objectives require combat.
Yeah.
I'm going to, and like, for some things, I've run into this problem before. right? I've run into the intangibility, I've run into the invisibility before, and it was frustrating before, but now we're getting into a thing where it's just it's another thing to keep track of, right? Like Snubby's character can make another character intangible. Characters can give each other abilities that replicate invisibility. Characters can, like Brett's character can just force rerolls for allies. Like, oh yeah, character failed roll. Okay, no, I'm just gonna make it so they can re-roll. Oh, now they succeed roll. The issue I'm running into is that, like I said earlier, the players' abilities are beginning to create this overlapping net that I can't seem to pull encounters out of.
I mean, you might have to just kind of take the L on that one and just make whatever encounters you're gonna make and just kind of run them and hope for the best. Like if they're that OP. It's kind of like when the wizard busts out force cage. You know, like, all right, guess you're holding that L. Or wall of force, or whichever one it is.
It's I know what you mean. Like,
the spell that I said is a little ridiculous and then you defended. Now you're seeing why I said it's ridiculous.
Well, I still stand by force cage. Like, you can defeat force cage, right? You can counterspell force cage. You can do stuff to stop force cage. Like,
not that easily.
And more specifically,
sounds like you're running into the force cage problem on the other side of the table and you're getting annoyed about it. And I think
no, like
you gotta kind of.
It's more like 3 characters have force cage.
Sure, yeah, that could happen to D&D too.
Yeah, but that's unlikely. And
sure,
if that was the case, like that's a situation where you can talk to the players and be like, I know you're taking these things to overlap them to make it so that it legitimizes things. That's not what they're doing on my end.
Kind of is.
So
they might not be doing it consciously, but they might. They. It sounds like they kind of are doing it subconsciously. They're finding particularly powerful combos somewhat by accident, and then they're rolling with it. And they're intentionally picking things that are furthering said combos.
Yeah, they are. But see, like that would be. There's a clear difference between like purposefully power gaming for optimization and just using the abilities that look fun and then that come with the mech.
I mean, yeah, but it's
like Twilight Cleric being busted because it has that stupid I can fly and have crazy buffs to the Twilight Zone thing I do. It's not power gaming if you play a pure fucking Twilight Cleric, you know what I mean? That's just what the class offers you.
I'm not saying that they're power gaming. What I'm saying is they picked a thing. They picked a thing that initially they went, oh, this looks cool, and then they realized, oh, it's also really effective, and then they continued to pick the really effective thing. So they're kind of like passively power gaming. They weren't necessarily planning to do it that way, but they kind of ended up in that place, and then they kept doing it because that's usually what happens. Oh, I want to do this build. Oh, this build happens to be particularly good. Oh, I'm gonna keep doubling down on my build idea because it's working really well. It's not power gaming per se, but it's kind of it's seeing the code and going, oh, this is gonna work great. Just kind of what it sounds like they're doing.
Right. Okay. So yeah, sure. Even if that's what they are doing, I don't see that as a what is the option there? Just ask them, hey, just stop doing that stuff. Like,
I mean, sort of kind of like the force cage example, maybe. I don't know how comparable the force cage thing is. But maybe. Or maybe just fucking let them catch the W and just move on. That's the other option.
But like neither of those are good options. Either just take an L and feels bad man my way through the rest of the encounters, or tell them that they have to feels bad man and not do the stuff that their characters are built around. Like, either of those are good options. Those are both just sort of failures on my part.
I don't think the failures on your part. Sounds like the game is failing. Sounds like the players have very easily put themselves into a position where they have incredibly powerful shit and they didn't even really do it on purpose. That kind of sounds like a failure on the game from where I'm sitting.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't know.
I mean, let's put it this way. If you were complaining about 5e at level 15, I'd be telling you it's a failure of the game. Which pretty much everyone agrees on.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
So it might just be a failure of the game here. It might be the same scenario. Lancer just may not have been tested at that higher level enough. I don't know that, but it's very possible.
Right, and then like that's that in of itself is kind of something I'm running into, is that I don't feel like I have a bunch of resources to rely on. Like at this point, there's 18 fucking trillion things for 5th edition that people can look at and go, okay, you know, people have mathed this out.
Yep.
But it feels like it doesn't feel like I have these resources.
Well, yeah, you don't, because you're playing a not as popular game that's not as well known. So no, you don't have those resources. But that's kind of the trade-off. That's kind of the trade-off that comes with playing a less popular game. The benefit that you potentially can have and use is you can just say fuck it, do kind of whatever you want, whatever you think might work, and not feel particularly beholden to any sort of ideas that other people have had, because there's just not that many out there. You know, one thing that's a little weird about 5e is sometimes you'll go to want to homebrew or make changes and, you know, make minor changes to 5e, and then you'll find 35 YouTube videos telling you why you're a dumb fuck for trying to make that change, and then you go, oh, okay, never mind, maybe I won't. But in this situation, you're not going to find that YouTube video, so LOL, fuck it, we ball. You know, that's one benefit.
I suppose so.
If you think the math has just completely cracked like a fucking chicken egg at this point, then fuck it, we ball, do whatever you want, and try and make the math work for you as much as you can. Make it bend to your will in whatever way you think might work.
If I do that, I am worried that I will put myself in a position where I'm going to accidentally steamroll the players and not know what to do.
Well, then you just retcon things. That's an easy fix. You just hit them with the, you know what? Whoop, that didn't happen. Let's not do that.
That's just an extreme. I've done retcons in the past, but that feels like an extreme retcon.
Well, if you try to, you know, increase the power level of an NPC, and then it turns out you accidentally made a super fuck busted combo ability that you didn't realize would be as strong as it ended up being, then you pause the fight and go, all right, we're gonna have to not do this, and like we're gonna rewind, and let me make some adjustments, you know, go back to round 1 of the fight, I'm gonna take this ability away, or maybe we'll finish the fight, but an NPC is gonna like save you guys from getting completely TPK'd or something. You know, convenient Deus Ex Machina that shit. Right, if you're running 5e and, you know, the players are level 10 and you throw a CR20 thing at them and it stomps the dog shit out of them, and you didn't realize it was gonna stomp them as hard as it did, and you go, okay, well, suddenly a Planetar appears and fights the CR20 thing and gives you guys a chance to run away, you know.
Just feels shitty. I don't know.
Well, what's your other fucking?
I don't know. That's the problem.
Okay, your only other at this point, you're telling me no to everything. Your only other option is to just play the game and be sad because it's not working, like, or just stop playing. Those are your last two options. Play the game and be annoyed that it's not working the way you want it to, or continue to play it and just, or just stop playing it completely. Like, I'm trying to give you potential workarounds here, and you're just hitting me with no over and over again. I don't know what else you want me to say.
I don't.
Like,
I get what you're doing, and I appreciate what
I'm
you're
trying to
doing.
offer literally anything.
I see what you're doing, and I appreciate it. What my struggle is like, I've got 6.5 years experience running this fucking game, and it's frustrating me, or running games in general, and it's frustrating me that it's like, it's pissing me off that I feel as stumped as I do.
Well, and
yes, I am kind of shutting down a little bit, because it's like, I feel like if I have to resort to this, I am failing in some way. And we've talked about this before, and I know you're going to say, like, well, you can't feel like that. And it's like, well, sure, I don't want to, but I do, and there's not a lot I can do about it. Like,
well, I was more going to say every new system is kind of a restart point, no matter what. I mean, it's not a complete restart point, because years of GMing other stuff is still of value, obviously, but it is a restart point to a certain degree, because it's a new system that you have to learn and understand. So, you know, you're not starting from 0, you're starting from like 10 to 20% or whatever. So that's just kind of how that rolls. And it's, you know, it might not really be a failure on your part. You might just have found the cracks in the system's design, because that just happens sometimes. Sometimes you play a game and then you play it for a long time, and then you start to find the cracks and you go, oh, this is a problem. And then you have to either decide if you want to deal with it or just move on. You know, it's like if you play a video game for a long time and then you get to a higher rank. And when you get to the higher ranks, you find problems that at lower ranks aren't really a big issue, or you never even thought about. But all of a sudden, at the high rank, they're a huge fucking problem that you have to contend with now. Like, you're playing League, and a particular character at bronze rank nobody gives a shit about, but that same character at gold is literally the menace to everyone's existence, just destroys every fucking game they touch because of X, Y, or Z thing that people figured out at the higher ranks or whatever. You know, sometimes you play a game for a long time and you find the cracks, and then you just gotta go, okay, well, either I stop or I deal with the cracks. Those are your two options. And maybe you should just cut the Lancer campaign a little bit short. You know, maybe you should just end it a little sooner than you were planning, if your sanity is slipping as the campaign goes on.
I'll see. I don't want to get to that. That's literally the last thing I wanted.
Why?
Because I want to keep running it, and I don't want, because it feels like a failure. Like, I don't know. It feels like I'm fucking it up.
Why would you want to keep running it if it is disappointing you at this point?
Because I want to keep running it. I just want it to fucking work.
Right, but it's not working and it's disappointing you. So why would you want to continue if it is starting to shit on the fun?
Stubbornness, I guess. All
right, well, that's not a good reason.
I also like the system. And I like this.
You've liked it up to this point.
To a point, but I like it, like,
I think that's a valid thing to keep in mind, though. You've liked it up to this point, but maybe you're hitting the point in the system where you're like, I don't like this part. I don't like the back half of the system. I like the front half of the system. I don't like the back half of the system. Like, maybe that's the situation you're in. And in that scenario, it might not be worth dragging it out through this weird, through some sort of self-flagellation ritual.
It might not. It might not. You might be right. I just want to do my linear story thing and have it feel good and have it come to like a conclusion that I'm proud of.
You can have it come to a conclusion. You don't need to hit max level to conclude a narrative. Lots of people conclude narratives at level 12 in D&D for this exact reason. They like the front half of the game and not the back half of the game. So they cut things early. That's why every fucking official adventure ends at level 12.
Yeah, but that never feels good. Like when you're playing an official adventure and none of them hit max level, you're like, that kind of sucks. I kind of want to like go a little higher. I want to see like what I can do at later level. And then nothing ever gets to that point.
I mean, it bothers me slightly from a mechanical standpoint, but from a narrative standpoint, do I feel like Descent to Avernus was not like a satisfying conclusion to the narrative? No, I think that was a satisfying conclusion. It doesn't satisfying narrative conclusion and hitting max level in the game mechanically are not one-to-one.
No, but they like, I feel like they feel entwined.
I don't think so.
I think a lot of players would disagree with you.
They can be wrong, I guess. I don't know. Like, there's no reason that you could have a completely satisfying D&D campaign that goes from level 1 to level 5. And you have an idea and you finish that story and the idea is done. You've did the thing you wanted. The arc is complete. It's the same idea that just because a book is 600 pages doesn't mean it's a more satisfying narrative than a book that's 150 pages.
Right. Okay. But to the point that you just made, I started this game with the intention of this game going to LL12 because I wanted that narrative weight of them going from rookies to being the best of the best.
Before you knew how the game worked, yeah.
Right, but it doesn't mean I don't want to still hold to that. I don't want to give that up because I know that's really important for what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to run the game.
If the game is falling apart, then you might have to accept that that's not gonna, like, you were like, you know, I'm gonna bike from this part of the state to this part of the state. And then you didn't know that 75% of the way through your bike travels, you're going to hit a fucking desert. And you go, oh, okay, well, I didn't know this was going to be a desert. I could die if I bike through this desert. I'm going to have to change the plan. You know, like, you planned to go to max level before you knew what the game was. Like, you read it, obviously, but you hadn't played it. You didn't know the full scope of the game. So, yeah, you wanted to go to max level, but maybe you realize, like, maybe it's just not going to work out. And just adjust the plan and, you know, make some narrative changes and cut it a little shorter. Also, in terms of if the players feel like they did the 0 to hero thing, I don't see any reason. It sounds like they did if they're this fuck off OP already. Sounds like they've kind of already gone the, like, we were nobody loser rookies to, like, now we're cool Giga Chads.
Yeah, and they are, I don't know, they are cool. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't feel like they.
Because the number didn't hit 12? That's your hang up? Because the number didn't hit 12?
You say it like it's dumb. It's not.
It's a little silly.
No, it really fucking isn't. Like, that is what makes epic level in D&D cool, because it's epic level. Like, yeah, you can be pretty cool at level 10, but you don't feel like epic level until you hit epic level.
But you can have cool epic level events in D&D without actually straight up hitting level 20. Like, you could still do, from a narrative perspective, do all sorts of cool epic level shit. Like, it sounds like you're getting weirdly obsessed with the number on the paper when I feel like you should be more worried about the narrative satisfaction of the whole thing. You know, does it feel like you hit that beginning, middle, and end and have a satisfying beginning, middle, and end?
Well, it certainly won't hit that satisfying beginning, middle, end if I cut it off fucking 6 levels early.
Well, it will if you adjust, like, the plan for whatever the narrative was, right? If you were like, all right, at level 12, you know, fucking Satan's gonna show up and kick their teeth in. All right, well, Satan's gonna show up at level 8 instead. You know, like you can still do it. You just got to make the adjustments.
Yeah, but the adjustment's gonna feel weird and tacked on.
Why would it feel weird? The players don't know. They don't know. They don't see behind the screen. They don't see the sacred text. They don't see your notes. Why would they? They don't. It's not gonna feel tacked on.
Like,
yeah, they do.
No, they don't.
Why would they? How are they gonna know it's quote unquote
because
tacked
players,
on?
Like,
if they don't know what you had
they're not
planned.
Stupid players understand when pacing feels rushed or not.
Yeah, but if you make the necessary, you have a rough draft, and then you prune your rough draft to the final version. If you had a 300-page rough draft, and then the book comes out and it's 150 pages, nobody who read the 150-page book knows that it was going to be a 300-page book, and as long as everything still feels narratively satisfying, they're not going to complain.
Okay, well, I don't know if I can make that feel narratively satisfying.
Okay, well, that's a different problem. But you could try. You can make the attempt.
Yeah, I could fail.
Yeah. It's not life or death here. We're not trying to curve the meteor off the fucking track of the earth or anything. Like, yeah, it could go poorly. It's not the end of the world. Life goes on.
No, it's not the end of the world, but it's important to me.
Right. So if it's important to you, then okay, let's put it this way. Imagine these two imagine this split path here. Option A is you drag the game out to level 12, and then you get really burnt out and sick and tired of everything, and then you get to the like intended narrative conclusion that you had planned, but everyone's kind of burnt out, so it's not that satisfying. Or option B, you cut it a little shorter, but you make it a little punchier, so yeah, you don't hit level 12, you only hit level 8 or level 10, but everyone's quite happy because the ending felt really punchy and satisfying. Right, like which option do you want here? This is the too much video game argument. You get what I'm saying? Like,
I get what you're saying. But you're like, your assumption that like, oh yeah, you'll just make it shorter and then it'll just be bigger and you just have to adjust. Like, that is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy.
But that's the fucking problem.
Well, I'm not. What do you want from me to
treating it
make
like it's easy?
No, I'm not treating it like it's easy. But I'm saying that's what you should maybe try to do. I'm saying it is a potential solution to the problem. I didn't say it was an easy solution to the problem. I said it was a solution to the problem.
You're making it seem like it's fucking easy.
How else do you want me to phrase it? Like, like, again, going back to the too much video game example here, right? Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that I love a lot. And I was happy when I beat it, but I'm not gonna lie, there was a part of me that when I got to that last couple hours of the game, I kind of didn't give a shit anymore and was just going through the motions and was really having to push through because I was playing it for 120 hours. If Baldur's Gate was 40 hours shorter, I would have been way more satisfied. That's kind of the situation I'm talking about. Dragging out the last chunk of the game just for the sake of dragging it out is not inherently better. Just because you think you should hit level 12 does not mean hitting level 12 is going to be inherently better. So you got to decide which is going to be more worth it. Is it going to be more worth it to put up with the system's bullshit and hit level 12? Or is it going to be more worth it to cut it a little bit short so you don't have to put up with as much of the system's bullshit, but don't necessarily hit level 12? Also, depending on the game in question, I can't speak for Lancer, but some games you get the full breadth of the game before you even really hit max level. Fabula Ultima, you don't need to hit level 50 in Fabula Ultima for the player characters to have really gotten the full breadth of their characters. By level 20 to 30, they've pretty much seen everything. They've seen everything the game is going to do for them mechanically, and they've probably created a satisfying build and have like fully envisioned their character at that point. So yes, there are more levels, but you don't necessarily need the more levels. I don't know if Lancer is that case, but that can also happen.
I'm sure it probably is that case to a point.
Like, is there anything that unlocks that's super specially awesome when you get to like level 11 or 12 in Lancer? You know?
No, but like the fact that you have at that point potentially 4 full mech licenses that you can mix and match is fun and exciting.
Mix and match, sure, but you're not unlocking like a whole new mechanic or anything, right? Fabula to use the Fabula example, by level 11, you could potentially have your first heroic skill. Once you've gained your first heroic skill, you have accessed everything that the game has to offer for you as a player character mechanically. So getting up to level 50, you're not going to get a new mechanic. You're going to get more options. You're going to mix and match more shit, but you're not going to get a new mechanic. So in that way, I think you can be perfectly satisfied stopping a Fabula game at you could potentially stop a Fabula game at level 11. I think that's a little short, but you could. So, in that same regard, if they've hit a point where, again, they've already sounds like they've gotten to fuck busted badass territory. So they're probably pretty satisfied in that regard. And if they're not going to unlock any kind of new crazy upper echelon skill, then you're probably okay cutting things short, right? This is a problem that 5e has, where the game starts to fall apart in those last 5 levels are the true the true villain. But the game does, those last 5 levels do have mechanical things that you're gonna potentially unlock, and for some subclasses the coolest shit is level 17, which is annoying. So if you cut them short, if you cut a campaign short of level 20 and 5e, yeah, you are missing out on shit, and that is annoying. A lot of people do it anyway because the game pisses them off enough that they don't want to bother, but you are cutting them off. But if Lancer doesn't have that problem, then you're avoiding that already. And also, if you could just say to your players, listen, guys, I wanted to go to level 12, but the game's really pissing me off. So we're going to stop at level 8, or we're going to stop at level 10 because my sanity is slipping. And, quite frankly, it's a game. My sanity is more important than the game at the end of the day.
Yeah, I did that with Hellscapes, where I was like, I'm getting frustrated. Exactly. We're not moving fast enough. I'm just going to bump you to level 20. And I wasn't happy about it. Well, I was in fact very annoyed about it. All
right, well, you got to pick your poison. I don't know what to say. You got to pick your poison here.
I just want the damn game to work for me. Do what I want, goddammit.
That is off the table. That option is not present. We don't have that option. Again, unless there is something you are misunderstanding and or missing about how the game works, then maybe that option will return to you if you find that thing that you are missing. But if that is not the case, then the game just worked, goddammit, is off the table. So you gotta figure out a different option.
Apparently.
Personally, if it was me, I would not be, if the last 25% of a game is just fucking falling apart for me, and there isn't anything particularly redeeming to keep me going, then I'm just gonna cut it short. Right? I pushed 5e to level 20 because there were, even though 5e does get fuck brokey on those last 5 to 8 level range, there was enough fun things, enough fun toys for me to potentially play with, and I had enough fun ideas that I was willing to push through the fucky wucky of that last 25%. But if I was dealing with the fucky wucky of that last 25% and there was nothing particularly fun to keep me going, then yeah, I would have stopped at level fucking 15 or whatever. I would have just said fuck it. Because effectively what we're getting at is no D&D is better than bad D&D, right? That's really kind of where we're at. Not that I'm saying the game is the campaign is going bad, quote unquote, but you get what I mean. In terms of how you're feeling, not playing is better than playing and being mad or frustrated, or however you want to phrase it.
I still don't know how much I agree with it, but sure, I guess.
How much you agree with what?
None is better than bad.
I wait a minute. You've agreed with me on that before.
I've like tentatively agreed with you on it because I get what you're saying.
The point of the saying,
I understand what you're saying. I do. But that doesn't change the fact that it like that the game and my ability to run it mean a lot to me, and I don't want to feel like I'm just giving up.
You're not
like,
giving up. You've already made the attempt. The attempt has been made already. It's not giving up. You've made the attempt. Like, you've tried to run it for a while in this current predicament, and it's not cooperating. And unless you're going to start hacking up the game, then you look at it and go, all right, it's not going to do what I want. And I've tried to make it do what I want, and it's just not going to do it. So then it is what it is. Like, that's not a giving up. That's I made the attempt and then it didn't work out.
I mean, but like it to me, it is giving up. Like, it's like, oh, I couldn't make it work. I guess I just got to give up. Like,
okay, fine.
No point trying anymore,
if you want to,
I
don't know. I can't brainwash you here. If you want to think about it that way, fine. But that's not the same thing in my book. Giving up, if it was giving up to me is, I tried one time to make it work and it didn't work the first time I tried, and I'm just gonna stop. I don't care. As opposed to, I've run it for quite a while, I've banged my head against this wall for quite a while, I've tried a couple of different solutions banging my head against this wall, it simply isn't gonna cooperate. Moving on. You know, if you try to fucking build a house out of mud bricks for a week straight, at a certain point you go, all right, maybe I should use rocks. Right? That's not giving up. That's just being like, this method is not going to work. You know, like that is a different thing. And again, it would be a lot more helpful if I actually knew the game in question mechanically speaking, but like I don't. So I'm still keeping the door open that there is some sort of element of the game's design that you're sort of misunderstanding, don't know about, forgot about, whatever, you know, something like that. I'm still leaving the door open for that being a possibility. So in that regard, I would say maybe try and find that thing. But in terms of whether it's giving up or not, or it's just like saying fuck it, it's not. It's not. Attempts were made. It's not giving up if you made the attempt. Giving up means you didn't try. And not for nothing, I do remember reading this book and being like, damn, this motherfucker crunchy. She might get a little crazy. And you were aware of that. So, you know, you still signed up to give it a whirl.
I did, yes. And like, I was more gung-ho when I thought the crunch was just the math. The overlapping LOL fuck yous that I'm running into is more than just the math. But, well, yeah, you know, to your
power
point,
creep.
Maybe I am missing something. Like, as we were talking, I was quickly like running through the like running the game section, and like it does talk about like the challenges and scope, but it doesn't really talk about it in terms of tiers of combat. It doesn't really give you any tools for like high tier combat.
Right.
It just sort of breaks down combat and how it should work, which is the math I've been using.
I mean, yeah, but again, sometimes the math don't be getting, you know, sometimes the math doesn't get the full scrutiny it needs. And sometimes the math works at lower levels and not higher levels for a lot of games. So you gotta kind of, especially for most tabletop games, for most video games too. As you get into that higher level math, like as you get into the late game math, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt no matter what, because there's pretty much no game on the planet, as far as I'm aware, where that late game math works perfectly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it
true.
always
that is true. Yeah,
it's pretty much always a case for any kind of game where the math is really tight in the beginning and starts to loosen the further on you get. And sometimes that loosening is really bad, and sometimes it's not too bad. And so you maybe just got to be taking the math with a heavy grain of salt for this particular game, and need to be like, all right, where can I make personal adjustments for my personal game to make the math work for me better? And especially because you don't need to, you're not designing anything for anyone else to play. You're only designing shit for your table. So you got a lot more wiggle room in that regard.
And that might just be the path I have to try.
Again, I can't speak on the specifics of it. So I'm flying dark and spitballing here, but
yeah, I mean, I get that, and I'm. It is definitely a cause of frustration for both of us, it seems.
I mean, I'm not particularly. I'm not playing the game, so I'm not particularly frustrated by it.
The frustration is I'm trying to explain the rules. You're like, well, you don't have the time to go into the like nitty gritty, but like.
Oh, I mean, sure, yeah.
It's a frustrating feedback because like I have to get into the nitty gritty, but you're right, we can't really get into it because we don't have the time to get into it. That being said,
well, I also don't think the nitty gritty is that important in this scenario. I think it is more about the broad scope.
To that point, I don't really have much else. We've sort of exhausted my notes a while ago. I did have a flow, like one of the flow charts that I worked out in the last fight. To sort of show what I'm talking about, but it's not super relevant.
Yeah.
But I just sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. The flowchart thing probably wouldn't be that useful anyway, because you're explaining a thing that nobody else has a frame of reference for. So like, it's probably not that important anyway.
Yeah. That being said, I was just gonna say that's pretty much all I had.
Yeah. Look, it's like when you were talking about doing the 5e fireball math. Sometimes you got to make your own math.
Suppose I did say that.
You did. Said it to me very directly.
I did, yes.
Well, ain't that the pot calling the kettle?
I guess it is the pot calling the kettle black, yeah. All right. All right, motherfuckers. That's been us. I hope you had fun listening to me lose my shit and mauled.
And
mauled. Really, that's the important one. I'm gonna have such a nightmare doing this fucking the clip for this episode.
Just make it a super cut of shouting. I don't know.
That might just work.
It's a super cut of weird noises.
Just fucking like chimpanzee grunting.
Something like that, yeah.
Brett, just randomly intersperse chimpanzee like screeching throughout the episode.
No, that's not a good idea.
Do it. It'd be funny.
I don't like that idea. Oh,
I wish
God.
it happened.
I don't.
All right. That has been us, motherfuckers.
Indeed.
Click that link in the doobly-doo to see our coffee and toss Brett a donation. And I don't know, follow us on social media. I'm gonna bang my head against a rock.